As the world deals with COVID, I had a notion to go on a series of walks subtitled Poetry in Motion, highlighting popular places in my adopted home city, each one narrated with an original ditty. It sounded like a challenging task, lots of walking while wearing a mask, showing things to see along each route, as I clock up the miles sightseeing on foot. History presented in an unconventional way, pictures combined with interesting wordplay. I hope you enjoy my rambling talks as you accompany me on Zoom's Auld Reekie Walks. Hello, and welcome to this first edition of Zoom's Auld Reekie Walks. I'm Craig Gallagher, also known as Zoom, and over the next 6 weeks I invite you to join me as I go for a series of walks around Edinburgh, each one described by an originally written poem. Due to the COVID pandemic, I will be wearing a mask throughout this series. Today it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to my starting point of Edinburgh Castle as I go for a walk along the city's most historic street, the Royal Mile. I hope you enjoy this little tour. Just to give you a reference point, here is a map of Edinburgh, and here is the Royal Mile in the heart of the old town, just a few minutes walk from the city centre. Our journey will see us travelling downhill from west to east, as the street changes name from Castle Hill to Lawn Market to High Street to Canongate and finally to Abbey Strand. Dubbed the Royal Mile in 1901, the road connecting the two royal residences, Edinburgh Castle and the Palace of Holyroodhouse, is commonly believed to be the length of the obsolete measurement, the Scots Mile, although this is disputed. It is partly pedestrianised and is full of historical and architectural interest. There is plenty to see, so let's head out there now. Many tourists that are here on vacation visit Edinburgh Castle, a dramatically sited fortification. One activity there that always attracts a crowd is the firing of the 1 o'clock gun. It's really loud. Sailors used to use it to set their clock when it was fired from the summit of Castle Rock. It was here in 1507 where the crown jewels are housed that Scotland's first fireworks display took place at a joust. There are many military memorials on the castle esplanade, a site where each August many pipe bands parade. We see a statue of Prince Frederick, son of King George III, whose military defeat inspired the written word, in the form of a well-known children's nursery rhyme, the Grand Old Duke of York, as he was known in his time. There's a gruesome tale behind the witch's well, of executions here via a fiery hell, accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. The thought of such an end would make anyone quake. This was only 400 to 500 years ago, a shameful period in our history, a real low. The camera Obscura in World of Illusions is a great tourist find, with interactive exhibits that will blow your mind. Its purpose-built attraction is the city's oldest, with its warm colours providing contrast when the weather is coldest. Deacon Brodie was a respected cabinet maker and locksmith by day, but on people's trust in him he would prey. As a secret robber he hatched many a plot, until in 1788 he was finally caught. Hanged on 1st October as recounted by many a tour guide, his double life inspired the characters Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. A piper may entice you to remain for a while by the David Hume statue in the neoclassical style. The Scottish philosopher and historian was born in 1711, and this Powder Hall bronze was unveiled in 1997. Rubbing his toe is many a tourist's mission. Ironic that he didn't believe in superstition. In recent times his life once again made the news, with Black Lives Matter protests highlighting his racist views. Work on the current City Chambers building began in 1753. Grade A listed, there is fine architectural detail to see, such as a piazza and arched colonnade. It opened 8 years after the first stone was laid. As the Royal Exchange it was originally intended, but in 1811 its use was amended. Poland's Stanisław Maczek's memorial bench remembers the World War II general who helped liberate the Dutch and French. For nearly half of his life, Edinburgh was his base. The Polish military cemetery in Braidwood is his final resting place. Now that we've reached the historic Parliament Square, there are many statues in the area awaiting an admiring stare. We come first to a statue of a man whose name matches the novelist of the Heart of Midlothian fame. The 5th Duke of Buccleuch, Walter Scott, on its 3 tiers to see, is a lot. Allegorical figures, of which there are a multitude. They represent liberality, temperance, prudence, charity, truth, and fortitude. The delay to complete it was worth the wait. When it was unveiled on 7th February 1888. Tourists may not spot this if looking down at their phones, but colourfully embedded amongst the cobblestones, the Heart of Midlothian mosaic marks the location of the dreaded Tolbooth jail that struck fear into the nation. Thankfully demolished in 1817, here an unhygienic practice may be seen. Mimicking criminals who used to spit on the Tolbooth door. Spitting on the heart brings good luck according to lore. St. Giles Cathedral dates back to the days of yore, as it was founded by King David I in 1124. In 1385 heavy damage it would sustain by the English army during their King Richard II's reign. But centuries later, when worshippers looked towards heaven, it had become a cathedral in 1637. As a consequence of nearly all of Scotland's money being spent, a bailout by England saw the country lament. The 1707 Act of Union was the unpalatable price. No more Scottish government for now, a thought not very nice. Why should I be so sad on my wedding day? St. Giles' bells chimed to that tune on the 1st of May. King Charles II's equestrian statue is made of lead. possibly the oldest of that material in the UK, it is said. It's the oldest surviving statue in Edinburgh of any kind. At first glance, it's a Roman emperor when you approach from behind. It was completed in the year 1685 and was unveiled later that year when he was sadly no longer alive. Commemorating the pioneering firefighter James Braidwood, many people look at him in a contemplative mood, remembering those who risked their own lives to save others, rescuing the young and old, babies and grandmothers, establishing the world's first municipal fire brigade in 1824, with principles which still form modern firefighting's core. As you stand next to this next statue's base, hopefully you recognise a familiar face. Adam Smith appeared on the £20 note. The Wealth of Nations is the famous book that he wrote. Published in 1776 during Scotland's agricultural revolution, on the subject of economics, he proposed a solution. His many theories it did convey, which still influence governments to this day. In the former Commercial Bank of Scotland HQ, there once were waxworks for the public to view. Edinburgh Wax Museum opened there in 1976. Its collection of famous people was an interesting mix. The faint-hearted visitor would need to be wary, for in places the exhibits could be quite scary. Those with strong stomachs would proceed without a care to the Chamber of Horrors featuring the infamous Burke and Hare, and the cannibal family of Sonny Bean were just some of the gruesome people to be seen. The Castle Dracula Theatre was on the second floor. Charles Cameron, the magician, left nighttime audiences wanting more. But tourists can no longer form there an orderly line, as the museum closed down in 1989. Christ's Kirk at the Tron was completed in 1647, a place where the congregation would pray towards heaven. In Scotland it is one building of just a few, with a hammered beam roof. The country only has two. Beneath the kirk is an archaeological find, Scotland's earliest paved street called Marlin's Wynd. This museum will soon have you in a nostalgic mood. A world first on this theme, the Museum of Childhood. A vast collection with 5 galleries to explore, with toys, games, clothes, books, dolls and more. From the 1800s it charts their evolution, from simplicity via the digital revolution. Moving on as we continue our way down, the Netherbow Wellhead provided water for the old town. Designed by Sir William Bruce, it's his oldest to survive. Built by Robert Milne around 1675, who was King Charles II's master mason. It was restored in 1997 to use with a basin. Open-mouthed bearded fawns face both west and east. The half-human, half-goat, mythical beast. John Knox House encourages you for a while to explore the oldest surviving medieval building on the Royal Mile. To 1470 part of it dates, and to the visitor a fascinating look around awaits, crammed full of interesting pieces of information, such as telling the story of the Scottish Reformation. The famous preacher Knox allegedly once lived here, but certainty on that statement is not clear. In 2006, the Scottish Storytelling Centre opened next door, a bustling and vibrant venue with the arts at its core. There are workshops and exhibitions if you get the chance to experience live storytelling, theatre, music and dance. The World's End Pubs foundations contain part of the Flodden Wall, built after the 1513 battle in which 17,000 Scots did fall. Outside the pub were the city gates once located, while inside customers' desire for a good time is sated. Life within the city walls was everything it seemed. Beyond those gates was another world they deemed. The observant passer-by may initially be at a loss to explain why there is on the road a St. John's Cross. Going back in time to a medieval date, there was a standing cross at Edinburgh's boundary with Canongate. The ancient order of St. John is believed to have owned here some land, plus some property where we currently stand. The Canongate Tolbooth building dates back to 1591 and now partly houses the Tolbooth Tavern where drinkers have fun. Those of a nervous disposition wouldn't want a long stay, as it's haunted by an unnamed spirit, so they say. No longer used as a prison anymore. The clock was added in 1884. The World War I memorial lists locals whose lives were lost, fighting for peace in Europe at enormous cost. With objects from the 18th to the 20th centuries, the people's story is a museum that will please. Using words from oral reminiscences, it helps to shine a light into the world of Edinburgh's working class to give a fascinating insight. It won't come as a surprise to hear the news that Edinburgh is popular with television film crews. For instance, the historical drama Outlander gripped many a nation. It used Bakehouse Close as Alexander Malcolm's print shop location, with 16th century Huntly House being its home. The Museum of Edinburgh invites you to roam. Interesting artefacts to see which will amaze. Local history spread over many displays. About Greyfriars Bobby's collar and bowl do visitors rave, that faithful Skye Terrier who guarded his owner's grave. The story of poet Robert Fergusson's statue has an interesting footnote, as David Annan's design was selected by public vote. Aged just 24 in 1774, Robert died very young, leaving 50 poems in English and 33 in the Scots tongue. Buried in a pauper's grave in neighbouring Canongate Kirkyard, a gravestone was paid for by Robert Burns, our national bard. Why is this 17th century building called Golfer's Land? There is a plaque on the wall that will help you understand. After reading it, you will have learned that John Patterson built it with money he had earned from a golf match for money in which he did compete. It was the future King James VII that he beat. In an earlier building on the Whitefoord House site, it was here that Lord Darnley spent the night before his marriage to Mary Queen of Scots in 1565. but within 2 years he would no longer be alive. In 1926, Lady Haig's poppy factory opened here, making many a wreath, before later relocating to Warriston by the Water of Leith. Nowadays it's home to veterans of armed service. As you pass, you should stop so that you don't miss this bas-relief sculpture in the Bowling Green wall, depicting how the Scottish Veterans Residencies charity helps support them all. The Scottish Parliament building opened in 2004. Its £40 million estimate ended up about 10 times more. It was the winner of Architecture's Stirling Prize the following year, although it raises among the general public many a sneer. On the eye-watering cost they are fixated, while inside Scottish politics are fiercely debated. Enric Morales produced a striking branch-shaped design, sadly passing away before its construction crossed the finish line, hosting changing exhibitions from the Royal Collection. The Queen's Gallery is located on the Royal Mile's final section, sited on the former Holyrood Free Church and Duchess of Gordon's School. It opened during celebrations of the Queen's 50 years of rule. From a vision in a stag's antlers of a cross while hunting in the wood, King David I decided to build an abbey there, dedicated to the Holy Rood. Holyrood Abbey may be a ruin now, but it is well preserved and still has that wow. Due to James IV, the royal dwellings are now housed in a palace which saw on his wedding day another joust. Later King James VI took up residence, but when he became James I of England, a move to London made sense. After losing the Battle of Dunbar in 1650, the Scots heavily sighed when the palace was by Cromwell's invading troops as a barracks occupied. But in 1660 there was great jubilation as it returned to a royal palace after Charles II's restoration. Our pleasant downhill stroll has taken a while for us to reach the other end of the Royal Mile. I hope you've enjoyed this wee ditty. See you soon for more Auld Reekie walks around the city. Join me next time as I go for a walk around Calton Hill.